Hey, 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 you're now tuned in to Underdog Talk. I'm your host, Eric Jones Jr., the underdog with a heroic heart, and I have conversations with successful underdogs. And today I have a successful underdog, Allison. Uh, can you say your last name?
Maynard.
Maynard. I don't know why I just had a mind blank, but Maynard. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing good. Had a pretty good Monday. I'm a kindergarten teacher, so Mondays is hit or miss.
How long have you been back in school for?
This is my third week.
Oh, okay. Schools in
Yeah.
California, they're just going back like right now. So you're a little bit ahead of the game. You're back into
Yeah,
that routine now.
yeah. Our school, well, most of the schools here in Indianapolis are like year round. So a lot of the kids started like end of July. A lot of them started the first. Some still are, just starting school last week. And then I'm from up north Indiana. I don't know. I think they just started school or they start school this week. So yeah, it's different all over.
Hmm.
Before we get into our conversation of how you're a successful underdog, today's episode is brought to you by Christian Dewan. That's my personal brand. It's me and my son. Positive energy through your clothes. If you use the promo code Underdog Talk, and Underdog is spelled UNDERW. I mean DAWG, and you will get 15% off. I don't know what's going on today. But you christiandewan.com, and Dewan is spelled DEJUAN, and use the promo code and you get 15% off. So let's get into our successful underdog, Miss Allison. She was in education for few years. I would say a few. We ain't gonna throw all the numbers out there, but you were an English teacher and an avid teacher. So, how was teaching for you when you first started? Was that something that you wanted to do? Like, oh, I'm going to school for teaching, or was it something that just happened for you?
Well, I actually wanted to be a pediatrician growing up. And so that was my mindset all through school. And then I took AP biology in high school and I hated it. I was like, oh, I don't think being a doctor is really what I should be doing. So I had a really, really good English teacher. Her name was Margie Blevins, and she was my mentor. And I was like, you know what? I think I should go into teaching. And so that's what I did because of her. So from the time I was basically a freshman in college on, I just had the mindset that I was going to go into teaching. Now, if I could go back and do it again, I would have done things a lot different, obviously.
Yeah, definitely understand that. So for me, I've been teaching for this is going my 6th year. Definitely wasn't something that I thought I was going to be doing. I didn't like school as a kid. Like school just wasn't for me. I don't necessarily agree um full force of school, like the long haul of school, just depending on what route you're going in life. But I so happen to get a job being an assistant, and now I'm a teacher. So sometimes, you go into it, you want to be a teacher. Sometimes you just so happen. So it's different. Our journeys are definitely different. So you taught high school from middle school on up to high school. How was how was it being a teacher? Was it cool? Was it enjoyable? I mean, I know how it is to be a teacher, but just from another educator, like how was it for you?
I mean, I loved being in the classroom with my kids. Like that's where the magic happened. That was that like there was just so much beauty in those moments being in the classroom teaching, and that's like the one thing I miss actually is being in the classroom with the kids and interacting with them. With that being said, when you take everything else into consideration, the administration, the mandated pacing guides, all of the interruptions that happen, the fact that I had sometimes 150 students as an English teacher. So not only was I interacting with the kids, but I also had all that paperwork to grade. And a good English teacher actually marks up their papers. And I don't blame them, but there's a lot of English teachers who are stepping away from marking up papers because like they just don't have the time or the capacity to do it. So um, over time, it just started to get more burdensome and more burdensome. And I stayed longer than I probably originally had wanted to, but like I do miss my kids. Like I still talk to a ton of them. I'm still in contact with on social media with a lot of them. So it was that interaction with the kids that was the best part. But everything else that came into it, it was too much.
I definitely understand what you're saying, because like when you're in the classroom with your kids and you're helping them and you're seeing them grow throughout the school year, that's where it's at. Like it's not where somebody comes in and say, "Hey, you're not doing this right or that." Sometimes it's like what you got me to do, they don't get that. So let me explain it another way. That's how I am. Like I try to break it down into the form with kids, and that's like you said, that's where the magic happens. And you have a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I understand what you're talking about now that I'm a full-time teacher, the pacing guys, all the data that you have to do, prepare kids for this. And it's like some of these kids, I'm a kindergarten teacher. It's like they don't even know how to chew gum and walk down the hallway. Like they don't know how to do hugs in a bubble. Like, and you want them to do what? Okay, so I definitely understand the background part that you're talking of. And like you said, like seeing students like so this girl, I think she was maybe first grade first grade kindergarten when I worked at this other school, and she came up to me the other day. She was like, "You worked at Central?" I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Do you remember me?" And her face, I remember, and I was like, "Yeah, I do remember you. I just can't remember what's your name." And she just started smiling. And it's funny because I always go through the hallways and be like, "Hey, your shoes untied." It'd be with the people that don't have shoestrings. And she remembered that. And today she walked by me, she's like, "Your shoe untied." I'm like, "You're not about to get me with my stuff." So just that part of, kids remembering you and smiling, that's what it's about. Being a teacher, being an educator, whatever you do in the school, it don't matter if you're the lunch lady or the secretary, like your impact on these children is very important. And that's what they take about who cares for them. So you say you stayed a little longer than what you thought. Why did you stay? Well, I mean, it's a job and stuff happens, but why did you say that you stayed too long?
Well, I have a bunch of medical issues. I had 3 surgeries over the course of about 5 years. And honestly, I needed my medical insurance because I was diagnosed with endometriosis and I needed, surgeries, and healthcare in America is not cheap if you're not insured. And so I had all my doctors dialed in. I knew what hospitals I could go to. Like I knew what I needed to do on that insurance policy. My coverage was really good. So I ended up staying probably 4 or 5 years longer than I had originally wanted to because I had health issues. And so, I stayed for the benefits. Even though I was still fabulous at what I did, I still, gave it as much as I could considering the circumstances behind my health conditions. But yeah, it was a lot trying to teach. I had my first surgery I did on Valentine's Day 2016, and I went back to work a week later because doctor's like, "Oh, you'll be fine." I was not fine. It took me weeks to start to feel better after that surgery because you know how much energy you have to take to teach. Like sometimes it's herding cats and, sit down, do this, stop doing that, like just constantly. So it's an energy drain. So trying to find the balance between that was really hard, but I needed the medical insurance. So that was the primary reason why I stayed.
Kudos to you. Like I can't wait till I get the little board where I had to clapping hands and all that stuff. But kudos, because I know how it is. Like when your health takes a toll, like some days you like, man, skip them kids. Like I need to stay at home. Like it's crazy. I'm at a new school and this is going into the 3rd week. So the first week of actual school, I had to get my wisdom tooth out because I was in so much pain. Like I couldn't even be at school. So I missed a day because of that. So then the next week I get sick and it's like, what the heck? So I definitely understand like life happens, stuff happens where you have to miss school or you have to work and you're sick or you're working through pain and stuff like that. Cause I deal with pain because I have a disability and I deal with that, every day. Nobody knows too much about it, but I have to go every day. Back might hurt, shoulders, whatever the case, but you still got to do what you got to do. And kudos, because you said you had surgery and I've had plenty of surgeries, and I know some surgeries you gotta sit down. It's not, hey, go back to work or go back to school or whatever. It's like I need a break, especially depending on what you do. So I definitely kudos to you for that, for fighting through that, because that's not a joke. Having health issues and then having to deal with kids, because kids don't care. They don't. They hey, you long as you there, they hey, you could be sick as a dog. Kids won't care. They like long as you here, long as you teaching me, long as I like you as a teacher, I'm glad you're here. When you're gone, it's like, where are you at?
Well, my second surgery, I actually scheduled 2 days after the end of the school year, so I would have 2 full months to recover. So and then my third surgery, I scheduled a week before Christmas break. So having learned from the first one, I scheduled the next 2 around break periods, so I would have more time to rest and recover.
Yeah, that's smart. And see that it took that first one to say, hold on, I'm not about to do this again. Let me schedule these for the right time, because yeah, like I'm sure like having surgery, you're missing out, but then you got to make up, all this stuff because you might have a sub, and then it's like you got to update everything, and then you got to get back into like as soon as you get to school, it's like, hey, we need you back. It's not where, oh, okay, you got your surgery. Here you go. We're gonna have somebody help you. It's no, oh, I'm glad you're back. Are you okay? Okay, you're good. All right, see you in class. And that's how it goes sometimes. So exactly. I'm glad that you were able to understand that and like, hey, let me schedule these for times where I can rest. So through those times of your surgery and staying a little longer, where was your mindset at? Was your mindset still like, all right, after this, I'm going to stay in the classroom, I'm going to come back? Or is it like, I got something else I think I should be doing?
No, I had known for a while that there was something else I was supposed to be doing. I just didn't know what form it was going to take and how it was going to come to fruition. And, you get stuck in the hamster wheel of working. Like you have a paycheck, you have a steady paycheck coming in. You know what to expect. It may be a tough environment to work in, but you know what time you need to be there. You already, 17 years, 8 years at this particular school, like, the ins and outs of everything. So you get used to it. You get in a routine. So, but with each surgery, like I knew my health was directly correlated to the job because it was just so stressful. And, as time went on in my career, like, school shootings became more and more common, and we started having active shooter drills at school. And that just didn't really sit well with me. I had after the Parkland shooting, I actually had a mental breakdown and I had to take a few weeks off of school because it was too much for me. I mean, people don't understand, like we see these shootings happen and we don't understand the impact they have, not just on the people at the school, but everywhere. Like I'm a teacher in a classroom all the way across the country, and it impacted me because nobody can guarantee me to this day that if I'm in a classroom that somebody may not come in and try to shoot me and shoot my kids. Nobody can guarantee that anymore. And so, that was not part of the job description when I signed up for teaching 17 years ago. I've been teaching for 17 years. So there were so many different things. Plus I was the rebel teacher at my school. So I was always teaching. I wasn't doing a lot of the things in the district mandated curriculum because I thought it was crap. I thought it was garbage. I didn't think it was conducive for my kids to actually learn. And when I went into the profession, it was because I was the professional and my professional opinion was supposed to be honored based on what the needs of the kids were. Well, no, my district and districts all across the country, like they want everybody learning the same stuff in the same way about the same time of the year. And it wasn't working for my kids. So I taught a lot differently. And I was constantly in the principal's office defending my practices. Why are you teaching this? This isn't on the pacing guide. We had a parent complain because this wasn't appropriate. The list goes on. So that also played into my wanting to leave. I was tired of fighting.
When you say about the school shooting, like, it hit, I think the last one that happened, it hit like, cause I'm like, before I was an assistant, it's kind of, I don't know, it was just different, but like, I'm like, man, it's me and my kids in here. If somebody comes in, like what would happen. And we had the trainer, the shooter trainer at our school, and I'm like, okay, sound good, but what if somebody really comes in, like, so I definitely understand what you're saying. Like, it doesn't just affect, that school, that community, affects other educators. It's like that hits home when you hear stuff like that. And it kind of is terrifying, because what are we supposed to do? We can't go to school armed. It's like, okay, we got a security guard. He can't protect all of us. Like, what do we do? Like, so that definitely hit home, and I definitely understand that. And I wouldn't say, like, I get what you're saying, like, with the, like, everybody has to do this and we're going to do it like this. And it's like, okay, does that work for these kids? Are they actually learning something? Are they taking something away? Now, I got kindergartners, so we're teaching the basics. But when you're in those higher grades, it's like, we need to be teaching our kids about stuff that happen in life. So they're not like us and they're at 30 and they're just learning about credit and all this different stuff that we should have learned when we were in high school, but we didn't learn it because they didn't teach us. And it's like, or it's like they're teaching us to be average. School is kind of like, okay, this is the average stuff, this is the basic life, but it's like, we want to thrive. We want to, be great at whatever we do. And you can't do that with just the basics. Because I can tell you firsthand, all you got to do is show up every day and put your name on a paper and you can pass. Yeah, Trust me, I know.
They pass. I know. They don't. It's really hard to actually hold a kid back anymore. They pass them along and pass them along. I remember the high school I used to teach at, the incoming class would be around 800 kids, the freshman class. 250 to 300 graduated. So yeah. What happened to those 500 kids? Like, oh, look at our graduation rates. Yeah, but let's talk about the attrition rate from freshman year to senior year. And what you're saying about what the schools are teaching, what I said to you before we hopped on here, the schools they want obedient workers. They don't want critical thinkers. They want everybody to kind of be the same and have to rely on somebody else. People who are empowered with knowledge and the ability to think on their own and create things on their own, that's a threat.
It is, because I'm like the perfect person for that. Like, I'm in the school, all these people that, oh, I got degrees and all that. That's cool. But can we throw you in the jungle and you come out? Can something happen at the school and you figure it out? Do you need a textbook to figure it out? You got to read first? No, like, when you're a critical thinker, when you educate yourself on reading and just life, and you understand life, like, you can get through life off of common sense. Like, they don't teach common sense in school. Like, I teach my kids common, like, they'll be like, oh, what are you eating? What does it look like I'm eating? Don't ask me what I'm eating and you see I'm eating chips. Or, why did you do that? You knew you were going to get in trouble, so why did you go over there and do that? And it's like, you're right. It's like, we don't teach our kids, like, my school, I love it. We teach social and emotional learning. We're teaching them how to express themselves. So, like, when stuff does happen, they can, they can think for themselves. Because when you don't allow a kid to talk, they have a lot of thoughts, but then they don't get them out. Like you said, like, being a critical thinker is very important. Like, nobody wants to, everybody has to fulfill a job, but that don't mean you have to be a average Joe to be at that job. You could be great at that job and have other things going on because you're like, I love to be a teacher. I love to be a lawyer. I love to whatever it is, but it's like, oh, I got real estate over here. Oh, I got this over here. So I'm not just depending on that, because guess what? If you wake up one day and your boss just feels the need that they don't like you, guess what can happen? You can get fired.
Well, I just read about a newscaster up in Canada. She had been with the company for 30 years and they just let her go because they wanted to move in a different direction with virtually no warning. 30 years. Wow.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing. People, I don't know how old you are. I'm in my later 30s. So, like, my mom's generation, she's 60. Like, so their generation and before them is like, oh, go to this job, work for 30 years, then you get on Social Security. It's like, it was, like you said, it's a hamster wheel. It's just, you keep going, you're going to get paid, but it's like, it's more to life than that. It's more than life to just go into a job and clocking in and clocking out for somebody else. Nothing wrong with it, but if we create, like you said, critical thinkers, people that can create stuff, then there'll be more jobs. It's technology now. Like when we look at our kids, it's like, oh, they're always on technology because that's the new wave. Just because we grew up without internet or something of that sort, like, hey, that's the new thing. So with you thinking like that, you always in the principal's office. What was your thoughts on what you were going to do outside of the school with what you had and what with all the knowledge with what you had and how you thought children should be taught us in a certain way?
Well, when I left my job, I really had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew it was a really interesting scenario. I had my third surgery in December of 2019. And I almost died a few weeks afterwards as a result of that surgery. And so I was put on medical leave. And it was only supposed to be for a couple months for me to balance things out. Well, then COVID hit. And one of the stipulations of me being out was I had to keep my stress levels really low. So my doctor said, we're just going to keep you out for the rest of the year. So I was off of work for pretty much the entire second semester of the school year. And in that 4.5 months, I started to feel better. I was sleeping better. I was eating better. I was able to go for walks. I was able to really take care of myself. And I had to come to terms with the fact that, this job is making me sick. And then the whole George Floyd situation happened. And I remember sitting at home with my roommate while we're in quarantine, watching the news. And there was this interview with these 2 young kids who were at one of the protests. And they were saying things like, the time is now, change is happening. We're going to change the world. And I was like, you know what? I've been wanting to leave for a long time. I have ideas that can really, I think, make a big impact. If I don't leave now, I'm never going to leave. So I wrote my letter of resignation the next day. So it was a combination of all of that, COVID, George Floyd, my health issues, that really prompted me to resign. Now, I didn't have a plan. Mm-hmm. I jumped. I totally jumped without a plan, but I trusted that I would figure things out. So I made my way down to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, which is where I'm at right now. I've been here for the better part of close to 2 years now. October 2020 is when I got down here, and I got sober. That was another thing that was making the teaching was contributing to issues with alcohol. So I got down here, I got sober, and thought, what am I going to do? So with the help of my therapist and a business coach, I came up with the concept of creating an online course to teach parents how to fill in the gaps that today's schools are missing.
I love it. I think I'm going to make the title of this job makes me sick, because that's like, what does that mean? Like, it literally made you sick. And I love how you said, like, you had no plan. You just jumped. Sometimes you just got to jump. But COVID either, it could have went good for you, but you could have lost someone. But COVID either went really good or really bad for people.
Exactly.
Because you know what it was? Those critical thinkers, the people that create. It's like, hold on, I got nothing to do. Let me start creating. And a lot of people start creating and becoming influencers or coming up with courses and books and different things because they were able to think. I created my clothing brand during COVID. Like, I've been kind of, that idea been in my head, and I just came up with it in COVID. And like the podcast, like getting really back on that. Like I had stopped for a while, and I was like, man, I ain't got nothing else to do. Let me start the podcast back up, because I was just creative, and that's what happens with people. And I'm glad you got those extra months to realize, like, man, this job ain't really for me. This, and sometimes people have to realize the job ain't for them. It don't matter what it is. Like, sometimes your purpose is bigger than that job. You still could be doing the same thing, but you're doing it on your own terms. And it's a wonderful feeling to to live out your purpose. And I was glad you're able to see a video, you know, a kid's like, I'm gonna change the world. You're like, hold on, they can change the world. I can change it in being me. And it's funny when you said about, not funny that the alcohol got to you that way, but I heard a teacher say, if you make it through your first year and you don't be an alcoholic, you had a good year. And people don't realize like
No,
is rough, but it's like kind of almost true. Like I don't drink, so that wouldn't happen with me. But like it just like it's stressful. The job is very stressful because
oh
it's like,
yeah.
oh, I'm gonna just go home. I don't have nothing to do. Yes, you do. If you're a good teacher, if you want your kids to learn, you're gonna do work at home. It don't matter if you feel like at the end of the day, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whenever you get off, okay, I'm done. No, you're gonna go home so you can prepare, so you can make sure that you're prepared for your kids, so you can make them successful. So it's a very stressful job. But I love that, like you just said, skip it. I'm gonna do something, and I'm gonna move. I'm not gonna even do it where I live. I'm gonna move somewhere else and see what it does over there. And
So
that's wonderful because sometimes people don't. They're scared. They stay in their hometown or wherever they're at. It's like they don't get to see the bigger picture, and you were able to see that because you get exposure. So you get there. You get yourself together, and you said you created a course. How did that go? Like at the beginning, because I know creating a course. I mean, you're used to creating courses and curriculum and all that, but now it's something that you have to create from scratch. Was it like, okay, I'm a teacher, this is kind of easy, or was it like, oh shit, I need some help?
both. It was interesting. Like I knew I wanted to create a course based on how I taught in my classroom because I know I taught so differently than so many of the teachers that I worked with. But I didn't know how to get it from here into the world. So I had a business coach that just really helped me kind of, flush it out and get it out of my head onto paper. Once I had it outlined, then it came really easily. Like I drove back up from Cabo to my parents' house in Long Beach, and I sat at their dining room table for 2 weeks and outlined like everything that I was going to go over in the video. And then I drove out to Las Vegas and filmed out there over the course of 3 days with a videographer. And then there was editing that came along. So like, it's been a really interesting process for me because I mean, I've been in the teacher education world my whole life, pretty much my whole life. Like I was in school as a kid. I was in high school. I went to college, multiple times. I got my master's degree. I got my national board certification. I got my teaching credentials. So I was in a classroom almost my entire life. So now all of a sudden I'm not in a classroom anymore. So I'm also learning all the bits about being an entrepreneur. So like, this is a whole new journey that I'm on, but getting the course, like I just launched it a few weeks ago. So now the next step is sharing my message because I really do feel that we need to get parents involved in the education process of our kids. I think that's the missing piece. And I know a lot of parents like, whoa, I don't know what to do. I'm not a teacher, because we've had this idea for so long. You send your kids to school, they're there for 6 to 8 hours. They get all the knowledge put in their heads. They come home, maybe they do some homework and we're good. No, that's not the way it works anymore. If you want your kids to thrive, I truly believe parents have to get involved in the process, but it does not have to be difficult. It does not have to be time consuming, and it can be fun. And so what I'm trying to do with my course, this is the first one I'm going to be filming more down the road, is to show parents like, this is how you do it. And this is how you make sure your kids are thriving, even if they're in a classroom and you have no idea what's going on in that classroom.
I love it. I love that. Like, cause it's not easy, but it's fun. Like you said, it's fun. Like you get to create, you get to be like, I'm gonna erase all this. This don't make no sense. And you can like create it however you want because you understand, because you've been in a classroom. So you have a lot of knowledge because like you said earlier, you're filling in the gaps with the parents. Because as a parent, I might not be the certain parent that helps with the homework, but I'm gonna help you understand life and understand like, okay, they taught you this at school. This is how you can apply it to life. And when you break it down to kids to the simplest form so they can understand, it's like it helps them in the long run because it's the long game. It's not where we get our kids in my community. it's like, oh, 18, get out the house. Hold on, okay. All right, I'm grown. And then adulthood hits you and you like, oh, I don't want to adult no more. Let me go back. Mom, can I come home? Dad, can I come home? Because they didn't teach you, or they didn't maybe have the resources to show you what it's like. Now it's resources. Now there's no excuse for parents to help their children be successful, because there's courses like you have, there's ebooks, there's all kinds of stuff all over. There's programs within your community to help your children. So like you said, there's no excuse for parents not to help their kids thrive, and not just shove down, oh, let's go to school, 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 school. We're parents. We've been there. So we shouldn't just force our kids to do something just because that's what society says is to do. Because when you do what society says, you're not yourself. You force your kid to go to school and they don't like school. Mm-hmm. You don't even know that your kid don't like school, but you send them to school, and then you wonder why they get to college and they fail.
Well, and I also think that college is not worth it for a lot of kids nowadays. It's a business. It's become too expensive. And so, I went to Cal State Fullerton in California. I think I spent $12,000 for my degree over 4.5 years. And it's like $40,000 or $50,000 now. And that's a Cal State. Like if you go to the UCs, it's more expensive. And if you let's not even talk about private universities. Like it's gotten so expensive. So I think if kids like want to be a doctor or a lawyer, engineer, of course they're going to have to go to college. Like that makes sense. But if you're talented with music, or if you're an artist, or if you really like to work on cars, and that at a young age, start developing that skill set with your kids, so that when they graduate, then maybe they can find an apprenticeship, or maybe they go to community college and take a few classes in that area, and then they can create their own job. And then it's not a job. Then they're doing something that they're happy doing. Because how many people out there are working jobs that they're miserable at, but they need that paycheck? Too many to count. So I want to help shift that and help parents, empower parents. Like, you can start to help your kids be able to create a future for themselves. And it really starts with asking the right questions at the right time. That's it. It's simple. It's so, so simple. We've overcomplicated the process. Like, oh, you have to learn all this. It starts with asking questions and getting off the technology.
Yeah. It's it really is like asking questions like, oh, how was your day? Like, no, how do you feel today? Like my son, I'd be like, how was your day? Good. And I'm like, dude, you say you have a good day every day. You ain't had a bad day yet. Nothing's went, oh, well, this and that. Okay. And it's about asking questions, because in my generation, there wasn't no asking question. There wasn't no talking. It was none of that. Now it's like, you don't necessarily have to whoop your kids. Like, actually talk to them, because guess what? Kids are human, and we all have bad days. Like, you can't just be like, oh, your child's been good for the first 5 weeks of school and they have a bad day, and it's maybe a really bad day. Maybe they really had a bad day. Like, don't go in there like, oh, you're in trouble. Like, what's wrong? What happened? What's going on? Did somebody bother you? Did I do something wrong? And it's about asking questions and actually talking to your kids and getting to know them, like getting to know what they like. Because like you said, go to college. Well, I just want to design clothes. Why do I got to go to this big school and waste your money on all this? And I can go over here, or I can get on this college and it's online, and I can stay at home and work a job and save up some money. So when I do leave, I actually got a start. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes kids don't get a start. It's like, all right, here you go. And it's because sometimes I was talking to my friends. I was like, sometimes adults aren't even adults yet. Like, you want your kid to be an adult, and you're not even an adult. So how can your kid go out there? They're younger than you, don't know nothing, and you expect them to be an adult? You can't. And like you said, it's ask the questions.
Well, the prefrontal cortex doesn't even fully develop until kids are on average 25 years old now. So that totally makes sense. Like, that they have a hard time even conceptualizing a future until they're in their, mid to late 20s. But let me make a suggestion for you. Like, instead of asking your son, like, did you have a good day? Ask him, what was your favorite part of the day? or what was your favorite class today? Or did somebody do something that you didn't like today? So if you ask more direct questions, you'll be able to open up a conversation and be able to talk more. It's
Indeed.
it's just really redirecting how you ask the questions.
You're
and then
right.
Always ask them why. Always have them explain why, because that's the analytical piece that's missing in so many of today's schools.
You know what's funny? That was part of our PD today. It's the why. What's your why, and asking why and explaining to the kids why we're doing that. So this is a new school for me, and you have to explain why you're doing stuff. And I'm up there and I did the lesson, but the kids got rowdy and I didn't re-explain why we're doing it. And it, like, listening to the PD and listening to you, it makes sense. Like, you have to explain why. Like, these kids want to know why. Why are we doing this? Where are we going? Whatever the case, they're asking questions, and it's like they're asking because they want to know. They're not just asking just to be like asking.
Well, and they're so young. You're modeling behavior for them, especially kindergartners. They're so impressionable right now. So if you explain why, when adults start to ask those kids why, they'll answer instead of just saying like, I don't know. Then they'll actually, and it's not even, they don't even say the words completely. It's a sound. Like, it's so funny. It's across the board. But if you start to model that behavior for your young students, you watch over the course of the school year, some of them will start to replicate what you're doing, which is what you want.
And indeed, like, anything that you do, kids are gonna do that. Like, it's so funny when you watch kids like play teacher and they're their teacher and they're doing it in class. You like, so that's how you think I am, huh? Okay. And like you said, it's right. Like, ask why, or I do that a lot. Like, when a kid does something, why did you do that? Like, make that make sense to me of why you did that. Why did you hit this person? Or like the last week, one kid, he has long hair and he has beads. Some kid was messing with him and was messing with his hair, and he spit on him. I'm like, why would you do that? And why would I ask both of them, why did you touch his hair? You wouldn't want anybody to touch yours. Why would you spit on him? And I explained spitting because I don't think he understood how bad spitting was. And then he was sitting there and he was like, I could tell he understood what I was saying. He's like, dang, I shouldn't have spit on him. Like, that's really horrible. But it could have been like, oh, just yelling at him and you're in trouble and you're in trouble. But no, like, nobody's in trouble. I get why you did what you did. That's not what you should have done. And I was like, you're lucky he didn't hit you. So it's like, explaining that to him and asking the why. Why did you do that? And it makes sense that you broke it down to me in the simplest form. So I know other parents can get that. And that's simple questions. What's your favorite part of the day? What was your favorite class? Did something bad happen? Why? Why was that your favorite? And it's like, Those are simple questions. And I'm sure if I can get that just from this conversation, I'm sure parents can get your course, because that's simple. And it's like you said, it's not hard. But the biggest thing that you said, though, that phone, you got to put that down. You got to put the TV down. You got to actually have time, like, with your kids. And sometimes we get caught up in life and the world, but it's like, put that phone down, spend time with your kid, and actually do stuff and ask questions. And you'll get to see, like, your kid's a dope person. They're not just a kid. They're actually a dope human being when you get to know your kids, and just by those simple questions. So you don't have to go into like everything, but what's a few other like things that you talk about that helps parents with your course and to be able to help their children out?
Well, my course is divided. Like, my theory is that there are 4 pillars of education. You have study skills and organization, critical thinking and reading, writing, and mindfulness and emotional well-being. Excuse me. And I truly believe, because I saw this happen time and time again in my classroom over the years, if students have a basic foundation of those 4 pillars, they can approach any class, any topic, any learning environment, and they will have the tool set, the building blocks, whatever you want to call it, to understand what they're learning. Like, if a teacher says, please read this paper and answer the questions, they'll know what to do. I used to just do that because that's what the pacing guide said to do. And the kids, they would read, but they were reading for completion, not comprehension. So when they got to the questions, one, they didn't know how to answer them. And two, they didn't know how to write sentences to answer those questions. So it's breaking each of those components down into really short, concise, they're actually in short, concise little videos where I break it down like, okay, this is how you teach study skills and organization. This is how you teach reading comprehension to your kids. This is how you break down nonfiction text. And so I break it down in a way that makes it very accessible. And over time, it becomes just part of the natural conversation at home.
That's helpful because like when I was in school, I just did it because you had to complete it. Like they told me you had to do it for a grade, but I was able to use common sense. Like I've always been able to use common sense to like get through stuff. And it's like when you read it, if you know the basics of stuff, you can get through it. Excuse me, but that makes so much sense. Like don't make it seem like, oh, you just got to do it to complete it, because then kids are just doing it and, oh, I'm done. And that makes me think as a teacher, are they just doing it to say they're done, or are they doing it to actually grasp what's going on so they can use it? And it's like, okay, I need to rethink now how I'm presenting this to them, so they can understand it and not just do it. Because sometimes at school it's just doing it. I gotta do it because the teacher said, my mama said, I gotta do my homework. Nobody explained, why do you have to do homework? Why do you have to whatever grade? Why do you have to do that? And that makes sense to actually give them a reason why, like a reason why you're doing this, and then breaking it down to the parents so we can break it down to them. Because sometimes, I mean, you can have a teacher or whatever, but sometimes your parents, your parents show you a good portion of your life lessons. And when you can break it down to them or help them and show them that, that's very helpful. And I like the pillars, like study skills. You got to be able to study. It don't matter what it is. It don't matter what you're doing, because everything that you do, you have to study. So anybody listening, tell your kids, it don't matter if it's basketball, football, if it's being a lawyer, if it's being a teacher, you have to study your craft. If you don't study your craft, sit down. I tell my son that all the time. He don't watch basketball. You're on the basketball team. What are you doing? Why are you watching this YouTube silliness and you are not studying the game? And you want to get better. You want to be a starter, right? And it's like, you have to study. And I think a lot of people and kids miss that. I didn't realize that to an adult, that you had to study. I thought it was just go, but it's like, no, you have to study. If you don't, you're not going to get far. You're not going to be great at whatever you do. And then the emotional well-being, that's very important with our children.
Oh, yeah.
Because you being a teacher, you say you taught for over, I know you've seen all kinds of craziness that happens with kids. And it's sad. Like, even being a parent, I'm like, man, I know life hard, but my kids ain't never going to go through that. Like, we're not going to be like, and it's like, kids go through a lot, and sometimes they come to school and they just happy to be somewhere safe. And sometimes, like, if you're a dickhead of a teacher, you don't realize that. Like, this is their safe place. This is where they actually get food at. This is where somebody tells them, I care about you. And maybe they have a behavior problems because they don't really know how to act, because home is crazy. And it's like that part of it, the emotional well-being, is very important for a child, no matter how old they are. Because like you said, you don't really become an adult till you're like 25. Like you are an adult when you turn 18, 21, but you really don't understand life until your mid-20s. Mm-hmm. And so, like, a person's still a kid and they don't realize they're still a kid. Oh, I want my mommy. What? You said you grown, right? Mom don't come when stuff happens. Like, and kids don't get that because we don't teach them that. And I love that at my school we teach social and emotional learning, because that's very important. So I almost want to have you come back, like, to explain like your course and break stuff down. Because your story was, I love your story. Like, you went through all the years of teaching, and then you're like, this ain't working for me because y'all the way y'all teach it's not it. And I love that because sometimes we don't step outside the box. We don't take that leap and say, hey, let me do it my way and see what happens. So because I don't want to go all into what you do. So, but I do want to have you come on again and kind of we can go deeper into that part of it, like what you actually do, what how it can help people. But before you tell people how they can reach you, can we get 3 tips on things parents can do to help their children, like be successful? It might not be um actually like with the school, like with school it could be whatever you do at home, but give parents 3 tips that they can utilize to help their children.
Well, I think the number one that we've already talked about is asking questions, constantly asking questions, and having kids explain why. I think that's crucial. Number 2 is to get your kids reading, not on a phone, not on a Kindle, like actual books. It doesn't have to be a lot. You start with 5 minutes a day, just 5 minutes a day. You'd be amazed at what happens if kids read for 5 minutes a day, because when kids read, they see good writing, and then they can become good writers. They pick up spelling. Like when they're on their phones, we read 25% slower on technology. So I understand the Kindle argument. I get it. But, go to the library. Libraries are still free. Like, go check out books, find things that your kids are interested in. If they love basketball, like you were saying, and I think the number 3 thing that they can do is if they really like a subject, utilize that to teach them. So, if they love basketball, print up articles about their favorite basketball player, and then they can read about it, and then they can write about it. So you can kind of trick them into learning based off what they love. Learning doesn't necessarily have to be everything we're taught in the classroom. There's a lot of controversy and debate out there about what's being taught in today's schools anyway. So, figure out what your kids love and focus on your kid and what they really enjoy. And then they might actually start to enjoy reading and writing more because they're engaged in the topic instead of, oh, here's the history book that we're reading again. It's super boring and everybody's read it for 50 years.
Yeah, I love that idea. I'm gonna do that with my son because his favorite player is Steph Curry. And it's like you're showing them a whole lot, and he's like, oh, okay, and it's like now he, like you said, now he's reading, now he's writing. And then I think when you have them do that, they're writing from the heart. They're not writing because you told them this is what they need to write. They're just writing what they read and what they love about this person or whatever it is. And that will have them be able to be a better writer, because a lot of writing comes from the heart. Like, no matter kind of what you do, even if it's a paper at school or if it's a poem or journaling, it's like it comes from the heart. It comes, your thoughts, but then it comes from your heart, and that'll help them. So I'm gonna do that with my son. I'm gonna
Fantastic.
He starts basketball season, but I'm gonna have him do it like when he's with me, so I can show him. Because even though it's not reading or actual book like with YouTube, it's a what is it? It's called Art Hub, and it shows you how to draw. And I'll see him in, me and him used to do it together, and I'll see him in here. He might be on whatever he's watching, but he's drawing. And he that's one thing I noticed about him. He loves to draw and color, because I helped him with that, or his mom would draw or color with him. And those little things, just seeing what your kid likes. And I'm like, okay, let's figure out how I can help you draw better, or whatever the case may be. And that's something that we both like to do. So I'm definitely I took some notes from this. That's why I said, need to get you on again, because you're very helpful to parents. Like, just in this conversation, like, most of the stuff you said that was helpful was simple. And if sometimes you just need somebody outside the box to be like, hey, easy, like asking questions, but asking the right question. So I love those 3 tips. But before you tell people how they can reach you, I need a quote. It could be your quote, it could be a quote you've seen, whatever the case may be, but I need a quote.
I think the way I live my life is trust you're exactly where you're supposed to be, no matter what's happening, because life is always happening for you, not to you.
Indeed. I had to learn that. It's like, I don't have to go to work. I get to go to work. Mm-hmm. I don't have to, whatever it is, I get to, because some people don't get to.
Well, I love that. With all my health issues and quitting my job and stuff, I was really angry and depressed and sad for years. And it was like, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And as soon as I shifted into the this is part of my journey, this is what I'm supposed to be experiencing, my mind, things just shifted on so many different levels.
Yeah, that's me. It took 30 years to realize why I was born the way I was born. It was like, oh, I get it. It wasn't for me. It's for somebody else to hear how I got through whatever. Or now, like you said, when you go through stuff, it's like, I had to go through that. If I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be able to be the person I am today. And people don't realize that you have to go through every storm, every adverse, every challenge is meant for you, because you're supposed to be a better person afterwards. So I appreciate you. I appreciate what you do. I appreciate you coming on the show. And I can't wait to see what happens with your course and everything else, because I know it's going to be helpful, because you helped me. Just those little things. And if I stick to it and be consistent, I can hit you up and be like, hey, those work. Just asking those 3 questions that you told me, or whatever the case may be, has been helpful.
And the other thing is, be consistent. Because anybody can start strong for a few weeks and then tapers off. They say it takes however long to develop a habit. If you consistently ask those questions on a daily basis, even just 5 days a week for 6 months, you'd be amazed at the shifts you will see. And it doesn't have to be hard. It can be really, really simple.
So tell people how they can, go ahead and tell people how they can reach you.
Okay, so my website is Maynard's Mindful Matters. My last name is spelled Maynard, and then mindfulmatters.com. You can get information about the course. You can learn more about me. You can learn more about my education philosophy, all kinds of good stuff. And then I'm on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Same handle, Maynard's Mindful Matters, for all 3 of them.
All right, now I'll have that in the show notes. I appreciate you again. Always, when people are on here, especially when they're leaving an impact, I always try to give them their flowers, because it's very helpful to hear from somebody that you're doing good. Because sometimes on that journey, especially entrepreneurs, am I doing what the hell I'm supposed to be doing? Because this don't seem like it. But just knowing that you were able to help somebody, I'm a parent, you're able to help me with just those few questions. So I know you'll be able to impact others. So again, I appreciate you for coming on. I appreciate you for adding value. And before we get out of here, do you have any closing words?
Teaching your kids doesn't have to be hard. And I really want to pave the way to help bridge the gap to have parents feel like they can step in and actually fill in the gaps that the schools are missing, so their children can thrive. Because I know a lot of parents are worried that their kids have fallen behind because of COVID for whatever reason, and they don't know what to do. And instead of sitting them down in front of a computer with another tutor, which gets expensive, try my techniques out. Give me a try. Let's see, can you step into that role and help your kids out? And I bet that, again, if you're consistent, you'll see the changes that you want to see. And it doesn't have to be difficult. It's simple, it's cost effective, and it can be fun and engaging for your kids. That just seems like such a win-win-win situation to me. So.
Yes, definitely does. On that note, peace, one love. I'm the underdog with the heroic heart. I'm Eric Jones Jr. I have to keep pushing for my kids. If I give up, what's that leave them with? Nothing. I have to understand that it's bigger than me. That it's not about me when I wake up and go to work. It's not about me when I read and educate myself. It's not about me when I'm practicing my speeches. It's not about me. It's about my family.